Upon returning to the WWE, Chris Jericho promised everybody that he was here to save them from the likes of Randy Orton and JBL. His mission was a huge failure, and before you knew it, he was back to being a mid-carder. Jericho's positioning on the card wasn't exactly unfair to him, as his momentum was shot while others like Jeff Hardy were on the upswing. Something had to change. Shawn Michaels, on the other hand, returned and was at his absolute best. Michaels showed fury in his promos and always showed up in his matches, and it didn't matter if he was facing Mr. Kennedy or Ric Flair, whatever program he's in, he'd do his best, and like Lil Wayne that year, he was unstoppable. It's probably his best year since returning. One of his most notable matches was with Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24. HBK almost didn't want to hold the burden of retiring Ric Flair, but since the Nature Boy insisted, he accepted the challenge. The match was emotional, dramatic, and even though everyone and their mom knew Flair was retiring, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame the night before, it didn't take away from the match at all. Flair went out with grace, which is not often said, and Shawn Michaels was the man to retire him. Easily my favorite match from WrestleMania 24, and probably my favorite of 2008. For me, it was a 5-star display. Flair didn't really have many of these performances in recent years because of a couple of reasons, but he was in there with Mr. WrestleMania. They turned back the clock, Flair hit an aerial move, and the ending was straight out of a movie. Ric Flair wanted the best from Michaels, and by God, he got it. The butterfly effect of this match in many ways changed the landscape of WWE. On the April 4th, 2008 episode of SmackDown, Shawn Michaels spoke about Ric Flair. He didn't speak for long because Batista interrupted, and damn was he pissed. And that's literally my reaction when Orton retained the title at WrestleMania 24. Batista was glad that Michaels found closure, but said that neither him nor the fans did. WrestleMania 24 was one of the hardest nights of his career. Why? Because it was one of the last times he'd see Ric Flair compete in the ring. And he was like MJ, he took it personally. Ric Flair was no longer around in the arena, and now Batista was all mad. Michaels said that it was very hard for him, but Batista told him, "You made the wrong decision." HBK said it was the right thing because Ric Flair asked for the showstopper, and that's what he got. He cared enough for him to give him what he wanted, and at the end of the day, he's a competitor. Hell, Batista would have done the same thing. They said that his ego wouldn't get in the way of his friendship with Ric. Ironic. What's also ironic is this situation for Batista. Isn't this guy the one who refused to lay down for others? He called him the most selfish person he knew and said that just for once he could have laid down. Batista's anger comes from a personal place. His mentor was no longer going to be around, and he was also disappointed at Shawn Michaels calling him Old Yeller. He said that Michaels saw him as a sick, pathetic, dying dog, and it goes to show what he truly thought of Ric Flair. Later that week on Raw, Chris Jericho hosted the highlight reel. His guests, Shawn Michaels and Batista. Jericho showed a poll with 65% thinking HBK did the right thing. Jericho said that the tears shed on Monday wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for HBK, and he got offended saying it was Flair who challenged him at WrestleMania. Y2J felt that he wanted to end Ric Flair's career, otherwise he wouldn't have cracked ribs in the announce table. The instigator said that if Michaels really loved Flair, why would he go that far? From out of nowhere, Batista said that he did it and Michaels is regretful because everyone's mad at him. Jericho asked if he would have done the same thing, and Michaels went off on the animal. He then said, "Where was your friendship weeks prior to WrestleMania? Why didn't you talk him out of the match? And plus, his retirement was inevitable." And then HBK said that Flair didn't ask Batista to do it because he didn't have the nerve. The only person that could carry that burden was him. And despite what he sees, WrestleMania was actually the hardest night of his career. Batista said that he trusted Michaels to do the right thing and he'll never trust him again, and they were close to fighting. Batista had this "I'll easily kick your ass" look on his face before walking away like a heel. Shortly afterwards, the match was made for Backlash. Since Chris Jericho was doing nothing, he decided to get in both men's faces. Jericho said that Michaels' nature is turning on his friends and just wanted him to admit it so Batista could respect him. At the same time, he felt that Batista was being irrational over the retirement thing, but was right in disliking HBK. Hell, he probably suggested the retirement stipulation to Mr. McMahon in the first place. Michaels hit the super kick and admitted it felt good. As for Batista, Jericho basically believed everything he said about Michaels. Otherwise, why would he kick him in the face? And he wanted credit for exposing Michaels. Batista said that he didn't need Jericho to speak on his behalf, and whoever he has a problem with, he'll confront them. He was also annoyed at Jericho being the special referee and said that he didn't fit in the equation. Chris Jericho felt that he was underappreciated, and then he went off on Batista saying he wanted to retire Ric Flair. He said that it was a theory before realizing, hey, this is a fact now. He said that Batista wanted to beat Flair after WrestleMania and have the torch passed to him. Flair wanted to be in the ring with the best at WrestleMania, and he chose Shawn Michaels, not you. And the night after WrestleMania, Batista didn't even show his true emotions towards Flair in the ring. Everyone was crying, but he's wearing his sunglasses. He asked the fans if they think Batista wanted to retire Flair himself, and then asked if he's more selfish than Shawn Michaels. He then got a Batista bomb. Why would you piss this man off? I don't know. About their match at Backlash, good. It was probably match of the night. Michaels fought an uphill battle and was more technical, whereas Batista was explosive. Batista with one arm was putting up a fight, only for it to be taken away from him after Michaels felt pain in his knee. Then from out of nowhere, he hits the sweet chin music to win. Michaels pulls through and was clutch like just about every Kobe performance from that time period. The next night on Raw, Chris Jericho hosted the highlight reel. Well, actually an award edition of the show. He was presenting the Best Actor award. Shawn Michaels, feigning a knee injury, won the award, and at this point, you weren't going to get no Matthew McConaughey speech from him. For Michaels, this was anything but a joke. He said that he was hurt, and Jericho mentioned how he said he'll do what it takes to win and called it a masterful performance. Nobody goes from pious preacher to backstabbing bastard faster than him. Jericho's waiting for that gotcha moment, but it never came. William Regal, meanwhile, questioned him about the knee injury thing and booked him in a tag team match with the Heartbreak Kid. HBK said he'll do his best out there despite being hurt, and they won, but HBK was still hurting despite hitting a sweet chin music. The following week, Chris Jericho changed his opinion. He said that over the last few weeks he was shouting from the top that Michaels was fake in the knee injury, but now he admitted that he was wrong and wanted to apologize to him. Despite Jericho facing Michaels at Judgment Day, because of this, he didn't want to face him with one bad knee. Michaels admitted that he wasn't hurt. Y2J was confused, but then he started claiming that he was injured. He was like, oh, this is all a ploy. It's all a tactic for their match. Shawn said that he would do whatever it takes to win, and he did just that. He still refused to believe it, so Michaels super kicked him before jumping out of the ring. As for Batista, he was pissed, and as he said, if Shawn was never hurt, he was going to go after him. Batista teased appearing at Judgment Day, and about the match, great. It's often overlooked, and almost rightfully so, because it wasn't the true start of the feud. Chris Jericho here is Y2J. He wasn't that suit-wearing, slow-talking guy yet. Both men were very aggressive in a technical sense. Of course, when Shawn Michaels slapped Jericho, that all changed. It was very even. Jericho would work on Michaels' ribs, and from out of nowhere, he'd make a comeback. And all of a sudden, he's in the walls. And probably the best part of the match was when Michaels randomly hit the sweet chin music on the apron. Because Y2J kicked out, he had to go for it again, and this time, Jericho couldn't even stand up. Turns out, he was using it against Michaels and hit the code breaker. It was very dramatic, and fans bought into the thought of Jericho actually winning, because it was so damn close. It came down to a quick roll-up from Michaels to win. Awesome match. It was very heated and competitive. It wasn't the heated, I want to kill you or whatever. It was the I want to win type heated. Both men were very lenient, but they shook hands after the match. But Batista, though, was here. He told Michaels that he's going to hurt him, not now, but eventually he's going to kick his ass. The problem with this, though, is the fact that Chris Jericho wants Shawn Michaels as well. These two are ready to destroy each other for the opportunity to face him in one night stand. Unfortunately for Chris Jericho, he fell short, and it was the Animal who was set to go one-on-one with the Heartbreak Kid. Look at this man, he looked demonic. All of this because he lied. What would he do if you tried breaking his pinfall in a multi-man? Never mind. Even though Batista won this match, Mr. McMahon gave Chris Jericho the opportunity to face Shawn Michaels. He saw how frustrated Jericho was and made the match official. This one was very quick, and unlike last time, Y2J's main goal wasn't winning, but on damaging the Heartbreak Kid. Michaels was broken, yet Chris still felt the need to bring out a chair, and if this was in July or August, Michaels would be knocked out, but he had a change of heart and brought him back up before leaving. The stretcher match at One Night Stand was once again good and provided an ending to this Ric Flair thing Batista had with Shawn Michaels. Throughout the match, Jericho was trying to motivate Shawn to fight back, but it only got Batista angrier. At one point, he told him, "I'm not sorry and I don't love you," and then he dropped him on the steel steps with a spine buster before pushing the stretcher over the line. On the June 9, 2008 episode of Raw, Chris Jericho hosted the highlight reel with his guest being Shawn Michaels. Y2J had more than positive words for the Heartbreak Kid, and when he came out, Jericho praised his performance at One Night Stand and said that despite the loss, the fans love him. Michaels thought it was odd and asked if Jericho had a question. It was clear as day that he was trying to demonstrate the fans love HBK no matter what, and mentioned the feigning of the knee injury and how he lied to it. He said that when he pointed out Michaels' lying, he got booed, all because he was trying to tell the truth. When he does good, he gets booed. And then he asked this question, quote, "How does Shawn Michaels, HBK, one of the greatest performers of all time and one of the most highly decorated superstars in the history of this business, turn into such a lying, cheating, pathetic little worm of a human being?" And Jericho attacks. They trade strikes before Jericho realizes his new weapon, a low blow. He's a heel now. He unlocked the move. Michaels is broken and Jericho is still annoyed over being lied to, and then he grabs him and says, "The worst is yet to come," and tosses him into the Jeritron 5000. What a way to establish Chris Jericho's new heel character. His whole point of being angry towards Michaels is because of the pure hypocrisy the fans showed him. He tries doing a good thing, he gets booed. Michaels cheats in his matches, lies to his fans, and even retires Ric Flair, yet they love him. So he was on a mission to point out everyone's hypocrisy and expose the fraud that is Shawn Michaels. Initially, some believed that Jericho's heel turn was attributed to Randy Orton's injury, because when you look at Raw, the number one heel is Orton. Number 2 is JBL, and somebody needed to slot into that role, but Y2J denies this, saying that the turn was planned months in advance. With that said, the Intercontinental Champion's demeanor took a 180. The following week, he came out and discussed the highlight reel incident, and after showing the clip, the fans booed and he pointed this out, saying he's done. He blamed the fans for what happened last week and mentioned how when he came back in November, he came back to save the fans. Turns out, they don't deserve to be saved, and connecting with somebody like Shawn Michaels shows a lot about their characters. So from now on, he was saving himself from them. And no, he didn't change. He said that he could wake up in the morning with a clear conscience, and attacking Shawn Michaels wasn't for personal reasons. The fans forced him to. That's why he's punishing him. It's for the fans' sins. He then called out HBK. It wasn't the Heartbreak Kid that came out, rather the Nature Boy. This man stood out there like he was returning from an attack, and after the commercial break, he stood face to face. Instead of a match, he wanted to fight in the parking lot, and he goaded him to the back where he was confronted by the Game. He said that Jericho's caused enough problems recently, and Triple H even mocked the Save Us thing and said that he was looking for a problem with Y2J ever since he returned. It was clear where this was headed, and later that night, for the first time in 4 years, Triple H went one-on-one with Chris Jericho. The match was unfortunately rushed. A 2008 Chris Jericho and Triple H match on pay-per-view certainly would have been good, but with that said, Lance Cade interfered and attacked Triple H. They're jumping in when John Cena makes a save, only to brawl with Triple H. This greatly benefited the heels, who dropped both men and stood tall to end the show as the new pairing on Raw. The following week, the feud intensified. Jericho was still trashing him for turning on his best friends and showed a clip. They said that he was an honest man and said that there's only one other man like him, Lance Cade. Now, it's clear that Cade had a connection to the Heartbreak Kid. He admitted that HBK did help him a bit, but he was eventually going to turn his back on him as he usually did. He praised Jericho for talking like a man and for being trustworthy, and he said that HBK wouldn't even get the chance to turn on him. Now, after threatening for the worst to come, Shawn Michaels paid Chris Jericho a visit. He's all worried, they brawl. Michaels had the momentum, but Jericho dropped him right on the eye, and that was more than enough. Even though by the looks of it, he was originally scheduled to face Shawn Michaels at Night of Champions for the Intercontinental Championship, he was now set to face a mystery opponent. Of course, he poked fun at Michaels being unable to compete and said that unlike him, he shows up despite injuries. The opponent ended up being Kofi Kingston. This was Jamaican Kofi, who had a very unique moveset at the time. Since this was his pay-per-view debut, nobody cared about him. Kofi was close to winning, but he found himself in the Lion Tamer. All of a sudden, Shawn Michaels runs in, Cade with a clothesline miss, and boom, sweet chin music. Jericho's distracted and Kofi hits the Trouble in Paradise to win the Intercontinental Championship. Michaels was still hurting, so Jericho hit him straight in the eye. As a result of this, he didn't appear on Raw the next night. However, Jericho challenged him to a match at the Great American Bash. Michaels was quick to accept the match, leading to Y2J coming out. He knew that HBK's pride would overlook his concerns for his personal health, and this was confirmed to him at One Night Stand when he took a beating from Batista. It was clear that his eye was hurting, yet he accepted the match, and in Jericho's eyes, Michaels was sacrificing himself and his health for the fans, and if something happens to him, are they going to support him? No. For Jericho, this was all a case of Michaels being a martyr and eventually forgotten. HBK realized that Jericho hates him for who he is, not because he's a hypocrite, but because of how true he is. He said that his legacy is incredible, and if he left today, people would remember him. Y2J was bitter over Michaels having a free pass, to which he responded, "I'm HBK." Even he knows it. Shawn admitted that it wasn't fair. He said that Jericho's won every title, sold out arenas, yet he's got no peace. No matter what he does, he'll never be Shawn Michaels. The following week, both men quickly went at it. They had to be separated twice, and later on, Chris Jericho destroyed Paul London and gave him advice. He told him he's got two roads, Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels' road. He interrupted and he said that they'll never change their minds on each other. He's like, oh, we're never going to change. He said that Jericho claims to take the path of righteousness and honor, yet he doesn't know the meaning of these words. Michaels promised him that at the Bash, the worst is truly yet to come, and so it had to come down to this. Chris Jericho's view of Shawn Michaels was that of a fraud. He threw him into the Jeritron 5000, injured his eye, all in the name of righteousness. Their match at the Bash was pretty good once again. Both men had some tremendous matches in the past, and with their incredible chemistry, it's the minimum. The match is mostly even early on, with Michaels getting some good shots in. The problem with the eye wasn't really a big deal here, and if anything, his ribs were more of an issue. It was all good, and Michaels had the momentum until he took an elbow to the eye. From there, it was downhill. The match was starting to become very one-sided. The referee was warning Jericho not to go after the eye. Michaels had too much pride to let the ref stop the match and instead allowed Jericho to give him a beating. There was this little moment where he locked in the crossface, but other than that, Michaels was unaware of where he was, and this relentless beating forced the referee to award the match to Chris Jericho. Okay, this was a great way of advancing the story. They had a good match in there, a way of establishing Chris Jericho as this heartless individual who was out to take out Shawn Michaels, all because he's not on his level. As you may know, WWE was going PG by the sounds of it. There was not much of a ruling on blood here, but as Chris Jericho said in this interview with Fightful, that changed. And I quote, "It's very much the reason why we got away from blood. Shawn got so much blood in that first match of the series, just a normal match where he got color. So much blood that Vince was like, we're done. No more blood. Shawn will tell you that was the one. I knew that Shawn bled so bad that Vince was like, we're done with blood." The next night on Raw, Chris Jericho was very confident that he ended Shawn Michaels' career. He blamed the fans for what happened at the Bash, saying there's no blood on his hands. He said that they inspire him to do things, and after taking one chance too many, he's paying for their sins. Closing Shawn's eye opened his, and he doesn't need to try satisfying people with zero morals. Chris Jericho said that when he returned, the fans wanted the guy with the long hair, coming out, telling jokes, no more. He's growing up and Shawn Michaels hasn't, and about last night, he was proud. Ending the career of such an immoral person means he, Chris Jericho, is now saved. Michaels is detached, written down the beating he suffered at the Bash, put his career in jeopardy to the point where he was going to announce his retirement. Before that could happen, Y2J hosted the final highlight reel. Chris Jericho is bitter over choosing Fool's Gold over Championship Gold and told the fans that this will be the last highlight reel they'll ever see, and he played a clip of Y2J. That man was done and finished, and Jericho didn't miss him. If anything, he was embarrassed of his old self. Those highlights were nothing compared to when he threw Michaels in the Jericho 5000 and when he destroyed them. Those 2 moments in himself, these past 2 months, were basically better than anything he ever did in his career. Lance Cade, on the other hand, was grateful for being saved, and Jericho told Michaels to stay home with his family. He's moved on to the world title. Shawn Michaels, meanwhile, finally appeared on Raw to address his detached retina. He said that Chris shouldn't really thank himself for this, as he's been wrestling with injuries over the last few years. Michaels was very doubtful over his future and was waiting for the doctor's opinion. He was prepared to retire and was going to make an announcement on his future at Summerslam. Now, initially, Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels were set to blow off the feud at Summerslam. HBK, though, felt that because the card was stacked, maybe their match would be overlooked. Why would HBK say such a thing? I don't know, but it was a smart idea to prolong the feud with a segment. HBK came out with his wife, and for the commentary team, it meant retirement. Michael said straight up that the doctor suggested he walk away, but at the end of the day, it's his decision. HBK listened to the doctor's advice and said that he'll walk away. He thanked the fans for allowing him to be the showstopper and mentioned some of his career highlights, and all of a sudden, Chris Jericho interrupted. At this point, his character change was complete. He changed his in-ring attire, he stopped wearing those casual suits, he didn't pose, and of course, his way of speaking was much different to his Y2J self. He refused to allow Michaels to go away like this. He wanted him to admit that Chris Jericho is the reason he's retiring, not because of the knee injuries or anything like that. Michaels calmly told him that if he had any decency, he should walk away, but he stood there. Chris wanted to be the reason why he retired, simple as that. HBK said he admitted that he was going home. He's going to tell his family that he can't wrestle anymore because of a vile, selfish, worthless human being. And then suggested Chris go home and tell his family that Daddy will never be Shawn Michaels. HBK chants intensify. There's a lot of heat there. Michaels' wife begged him to walk away, but when he did, Jericho accidentally punched her. It wasn't Chris Jericho who was all intense, it was Shawn Michaels. Now, this moment itself caused great distress for Shawn Michaels. He almost regret doing this segment as a whole because Jericho actually hit her a bit too hard, but she ended up making a joke out of it, so all was good. The next night on Raw, Chris Jericho refused to hold himself responsible for what happened at SummerSlam. The fans booed him, chanted, "You suck," after seeing the footage, and he was starting to blame the fans as well. At the end of the day, though, he said that it was Shawn Michaels who had the most blame. Jericho even said that he had it coming. Shawn Michaels made his return and was very calm and composed, but it felt like he could go crazy at any moment. Michaels admitted that he didn't put in the letter of resignation because he wanted to thank the fans. It was hard, and that's why his wife was by his side. Then Chris Jericho punched her, and that's when he realized that he wasn't going anywhere. Fans go crazy, like, yeah, Shawn Michaels is staying. All of a sudden, Jericho pops up, and HBK says that he wanted this match because if he just wanted to do what he wants, he'll go to jail. It's as simple as that. If they fight outside of the ring, he's basically going to get arrested. In the ring, though, he can legally do whatever he wants. Jericho was disgusted, and HBK told him that he'll sign anything to have the match. Chris accepted and warned Shawn not to let his family watch the event. He said that he'll never forgive Jericho for what he did to his family. He said that he wasn't looking to win the match or steal a show. It was an eye for an eye. On the final Raw before Unforgiven, both men were set to sign the contract for their match. They signed, and Chris Jericho asked, "Why would you bring so much security?" Michael said that it wasn't his security. Y2J said that he followed Shawn's advice, and he sat his kids and wife down and said that he'll never be a lying, manipulative, egotistical person like Shawn Michaels. He said that he was going to take him out of his misery, and unlike Ric Flair, he's not going to be sorry. And after all this, he has one person to blame, and that's himself. Michaels responded saying he takes comfort in knowing that his kids aren't watching this match. However, he's eventually going to tell him about this, and at Unforgiven, all that suffering Chris Jericho put him through is going to rain down on him without any remorse. Unforgiven was an appropriate name because he will never forgive Chris Jericho. Michaels was hoping that God would forgive him for what he does to him. They're getting ready to fight when Lance Cade ran in. At one point, Michaels almost broke his neck going after Jericho. Now, with that said, their match at Unforgiven provided an ending to this personal storyline. For PG-era standards, it was very violent. Chris Jericho put Michaels through hell early on, but it was nothing compared to what he endured a while later. Lance Cade interfered, and while he did hell for a bit, Michaels took him out. This is when he started going all out and making Jericho pay for his sins. He put him through a table, kicked him in the head, dived through the announce table, whipped him with a belt, and even beat him with a steel part of it. The referee had to call for the belt, and it was then where Shawn Michaels got even more emotional and continued attacking. Even super kicked the referee. He seemed almost regretful of his actions, and as the commentary said, I wonder if Shawn Michaels will ever forgive himself. Tremendous matchup. It settled the issues these two had in violent fashion, as it should be, and gave Michaels closure on the situation. Later that night, CM Punk was attacked. This meant he was replaced in the championship scramble. His replacement? Chris Jericho. He didn't do much except pin Kane with 5 seconds left. Batista looked on in shock as he always did, and this man always fell short. This guy was like Arsenal in the late 2000s. He was always close, but he never won it. But the worst night of Chris Jericho's turned into one of his best. awesome. I loved how they wrapped up this part of the storyline with HBK gaining vengeance and making Jericho pay for his sins, but at the same time turned it into a story about the title, because after Unforgiven, they didn't have the I hate you and I want to destroy you attitude towards each other. Shawn Michaels resolved that, and it was now about the most coveted gold. The next night on Raw, Chris Jericho came out all joyous, which is something not often said in this time period. He pointed at Shawn Michaels' hypocrisy and about being a good guy by showing his scars and wounds from the previous night. Jericho was talking about the match and wasn't exactly mad or angry about it. He said that Shawn may have won the match technically, but in essence, he accomplished nothing because the match technically never happened. Unlike him, Jericho accomplished something the previous night. He said that good things happen to good people, and the champion admitted that he wasn't Shawn Michaels but better. He was also the new World Heavyweight Champion. After putting Chris Jericho through several matches in the span of a week, Mike Adamle felt that he should look forward to No Mercy. At the end of the night, he was set to reveal the opponent for Chris Jericho at No Mercy. The champion didn't really feel like defending the title and said that Batista and JBL should beat the hell out of each other, and right afterwards, they challenged for the gold. Mike Adamle agreed with Jericho, saying that the winner of the match is the number one contender for the title, and he ended up taking the opinion of a certain someone. HBK chants intensify, and there he is, Shawn Michaels. He said that they faced off in all kinds of matches. How can they top themselves? Easy. A ladder match. Jericho was speechless, and at this point, they went through no DQ matches, bled, but now it was all about climbing the rungs to capture the championship. It makes sense the feud ends with a ladder match. These two are ladder match all-stars. This time around, Chris Jericho had an issue with HBK saying he revolutionized the ladder match and made fun of the fans for believing him. The champion was very confident of his chances, citing his previous success in ladder matches, and in addition, Michaels being desperate and trying to be like his old self will cause him to lose. Randy Orton interrupted, and that's a different story. With that said, Michaels and Jericho featured in a very exciting handicap match later that night. Michaels and Batista had the entire crowd rooting for them, but they fell short with Lance Cade scoring the victory. Of course, it was a handicap match, but you could see how much hope they had for Lance Cade. On the final Raw before No Mercy, Shawn Michaels was set to face Lance Cade and Chris Jericho once again. This time around, he got to choose his partner. The partner was teased by HBK multiple times. Real American, Texas rattlesnake, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. But he was joking. At this point, I was looking for someone that just liked him. As for Chris Jericho, he spoke in detail about what he's going to do to Shawn Michaels at No Mercy. The tag team partner, well, these two had to wait. They looked very anxious, staring and staring and staring, when all of a sudden, you hear, "Are you ready?" Triple H, the WWE champion from SmackDown, was back to reform DX for one night. Of course you know what that means. Lance Cade took a beating, a DX premium beating, and Michaels even took it a step further and hit the crossbody from the top of the ladder. So let's come down to this. The end of Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho's intense feud. A rivalry that was centered on honesty, cruel intentions, and now championship gold. The program deserved the title more than whatever CM Punk was doing at the time, because during his title run, he was always overshadowed by another feud on the show, and it made the title look almost secondary. Plus, these two are doing some of the best work in their entire career, and they should be the focal point, the number one program, the main event. With that said, the match was iconic. As a ladder match, it's not that innovative, but the way they told the story, it's amongst the best, and for me, it's just that. Both men heading into it had some minor injuries, and this match would add to that. They took quite the beating before even climbing the ladder. Michaels in particular was taking a lot of shots to the head, and even with himself being beaten, he dropped Jericho through the announce table. Michaels' arm was hurting, his ribs were a problem, and now Jericho's trying to rearrange his face. The craziest part of the match was when he tipped over the champion, who landed on his knee. All HBK had to do was climb the ladder. He wasted too much time and was pushed over, and this led to the final part of the match where Michaels had his hands on the title. Lance Cade makes a run, and that's not enough to stop HBK, and as a matter of fact, he got into a tug-of-war with Jericho over the title. The champion was desperate, holding on for all his fiber being, whereas Michaels was all in on prying the title away from his hard hands. They bump into each other, and Jericho, by the skin of his teeth, retains. It was something special. Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels are ladder match icons, so you wouldn't expect anything less. For Chris Jericho, it was all about establishing his legacy. That's how important this match was in storyline. But outside of that, it's easily one of the defining moments of his career. He main evented the pay-per-view with arguably the greatest wrestler of all time in a ladder match for the title. They put on a classic, one of the best matches of 2008. Sure, a part of his tooth was broken, but I'm sure he'll take it. For me, it's one of my favorite matches of all time. It was a great way to end the feud. Overall, this feud is one of WWE's greatest. It provided Chris Jericho a platform to finally shine bright as a true main event talent, not like his free trial main event run in 2002. The feud wasn't basic good guy and bad guy. It was much deeper than that, and it's credited to Michaels and Jericho's approach to the feud. As Y2J said, it wasn't made in the office. Michaels lied to him and took it personally. Jericho's honest character was partially true, but he lashed out with violence and almost left HBK blind. Jericho was technically right, but he was a douche about it. He broke free from the Y2J character and finally became a main eventer, winning the world title. The best segment from here is probably SummerSlam, because that's when things really kicked up a notch. They shifted into the sixth gear, basically. Shawn Michaels was trying to fight back this and that, but now he had enough fury and rage to actually destroy Chris Jericho and return the favor from June, July, and so on. Best match for me, No Mercy. This is the best ladder match of all time, in my personal opinion. They really knew what they were doing here. It was good. Alright, what'd you guys think of Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels' feud? Please comment down below. That's it for this video. Make sure you hit the sweet chin music on the like button and perhaps the code breaker on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.